Tales from the Walking Dead, the newest spin-off in the world of The Walking Dead, finally came out like 3 weeks ago. And I know I missed the first 2 episodes, but in this video, I'm going to review and I'm going to discuss the first 3 episodes. For those of you that don't know, but I'm sure you do if you're watching this video, Tales from the Walking Dead is the newest, like I said, spin-off in the world of The Walking Dead. It serves as almost like an anthology series where each episode follows a new character for just one episode only. Some of those characters are completely original new characters, and some of those characters are established characters from the universe. Before I get too deep into this video, there will be some spoilers, so I recommend if you're at all interested in the show, go watch it and then come back and watch this. And also, before I get into it, consider subscribing, because I love the Walking Dead universe. This channel essentially started with me discussing Walking Dead stuff. I talk about everything Walking Dead related, along with other TV shows and movies and video game discussions and collection updates and that sort of thing. Later tonight, I got a House of the Dragon video coming out, reviewing and discussing the first episode, which I'm so hyped for. Anyway, it might sound like blasphemy coming from someone like me who's a huge Walking Dead fanatic, a huge Walking Dead fanboy, but I don't have that much to say about Tales from the Walking Dead. Not because it's bad, but also not because it's great. It just is very average. It just comes across like very non-offensive Walking Dead material. It's not nearly as bad and as hard to get through as some of the Walking Dead stuff we've gotten. Fear Season 7 dragged a little bit for me personally. Walking Dead World Beyond Season 2, it was very, very hard for me to get through that, which is so disappointing because I love the Walking Dead universe. But Tales, so far, the first 3 episodes, I wasn't fully on the edge of my seat like I am with the main show sometimes in like Fear Season 6, but I also wasn't scrolling through my phone either. You know what I mean? It at least had me invested enough to not be distracted by other things. So the very first episode is titled Joe and Evie, and this was a really enjoyable episode in my opinion. It had Terry Crews and Olivia Munn, which I really enjoyed seeing them in this universe, because I've said this before in some of my past Walking Dead videos, but I like that the Walking Dead universe uses relatively unknown people in their series and in their shows, because it adds to the realism in my opinion. But every now and then I like it when we see a recognizable face, when we see someone that we clearly know from other things, like Terry Crews and like Olivia Munn. It adds every now and then just a fresh punch, a fresh spice to the stew that I think the show desperately needs when it feels stagnant sometimes. And that's what those actors did in this, and I absolutely enjoyed their characters. Like, in fact, I wouldn't mind seeing them again in this universe, if I'm being completely honest with you, though I kind of am hesitant saying that because I don't want this TV show to just serve as a prequel to these characters in other series and Walking Dead universe shows, but I liked them enough to want to see them again. The episode was lighter, it was funner, it was a bit lighthearted, and I really liked it. It really matched the tone that, you know, Terry Crews is known for. He's in a lot of funny things, a lot of comedic things. And seeing his character, who's essentially a prepper and a survivalist, mixed with Olivia Munn's character, who's like this like spiritual hippie type person, was really fun. And the ending came across kind of cheesy, and I can see a lot of people saying it was cheesy, which you're not wrong for thinking that, but for me personally, it just felt light. It felt different. It felt just, you know, like a one-off comic. Like if this was a one-shot comic written by Robert Kirkman, I don't think anyone would really be complaining. But since it's a TV show and you sit down and you watch it for 40 minutes, it's more open to criticism, especially when you have directing and more writing involved. The second episode was my least favorite of the season so far. I didn't dislike it, but it was very odd. It was these 2 characters caught in a time loop at the very start of the apocalypse. And I just really don't have much to say about this episode. I will say that this episode is elevated by the 2 actresses in it, the 2 characters, Gina and Blair. That's their characters' names. I really liked their characters, and I thought that their performances were really good, and it carried them through what, in my opinion, was kind of a bland episode, which is kind of ironic because this is quote-unquote on paper the most creative episode of The Walking Dead in a long time, getting stuck in a time loop, and you can tell that's what was said in the writer's room when they were writing this. They're like, this is an anthology series, it's not part of the main story, they're one-offs, here's where we can be creative, and that's what they did. But it just wasn't that interesting to me, unfortunately, because the premise and the idea of it had so much potential. But again, the 2 main characters did elevate it, and I did see some fan theories. I don't like to read fan theories. I don't like to read comments before I give my initial thoughts, but I saw these ones involuntarily, and that was that a lot of people theorized that they died in the beginning and their souls were stuck in a time loop, which if that's the case, I find it far more interesting. But if that's not the case, I just find it very quirky for the sake of quirkiness, which I personally don't like. And the last episode, or episode 3, which is as far as the season's up to so far, was, in my opinion, obviously the best episode. Now, this is the Alpha-centric episode. This is the only time this season that we're getting a returning character. Alpha, played by Samantha something with an M. I apologize. I forget the name. She's one of the best villains the show has ever had, and it was really, really interesting seeing her character again. Now, this episode takes place between the first Alpha origin episode we got, where she's stuck in the bunker with her husband and the group of people, but it takes place before the second Alpha origin story we got, where she meets Beta for the first time. The setting of this episode was really creepy. It really matched Alpha's aesthetic and Alpha's vibe. They're on like this riverboat going through a swamp river, very foggy, very overhanging trees, alligators. Just a creepy vibe that I really, really liked. That just, again, matched the overall tone that the Whisperers brought to the main show in the first place. The writing I thought was the best, the drama I thought was the best, and the character development I believe was the best of the 3 episodes that we saw so far, and I really, really liked it. However, I feel like there's a slight continuity error. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't rewatched seasons 10. I haven't rewatched season 10 since it came out, so I could be completely wrong. So again, let me know if I am. But in that episode where Alpha meets Beta for the first time, I don't believe she has a mask. I don't believe that she's yet a Whisperer. I don't think that she has a zombie's face that she puts on. But at the end of this episode, she meets a group that I'm assuming, well, it's kind of obvious they're the original Whisperers, which I'm going to talk about that again in a minute. So it doesn't really make sense to me that before she meets Beta, she had already been taken in by a group that are the Whisperers. But then as time goes on and she meets Beta, she's not wearing a mask, if that makes sense. But again, let me know if I'm wrong. Maybe she did have a mask and I'm just forgetting. Now, I want to talk about that very end. The fact that Alpha was taken in by the Whisperers, a group wearing zombie faces, whispering. They look aesthetically like the Whisperers did in season 9 of The Walking Dead. I'm kind of mixed on this. On one hand, I think it's kind of cool that Alpha was essentially taken in by a group. And then I'm not even going to say she took over the group, because again, by the time she meets Beta, she's not part of a group. So I'm assuming that whole group died, or she left that group, or she abandoned that group, or she killed some of them and then took off with Lydia. But regardless, she saw the Whisperers in action. And I kind of don't like that that the Whisperers weren't her brainchild, if that makes sense. I liked the idea that the Whisperers were her baby just as much as Lydia was. But on the other hand, I think it's kind of cool, the whole casual person growing into a villain, getting taken in by a group that turns out to be bad, and then she overtakes it, though I feel like we've seen it too much. But yeah, that's my quick episodes on Tales from the Walking Dead. What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments. What was your favorite episode of the first 3, and which episode of the episodes 4 through 6 do you think is going to be your favorite? Let me know, and consider subscribing if you like TV show discussions, movie discussions, trailer reactions, that sort of thing, and especially if you just want to support a fellow Walking Dead fanatic.